Hello and welcome to the Schola Progenium. Today I want to get stuck in with some tactics for units in 9th edition, and I thought I'd get started with the Furioso Dreadnought because he's really shone out in the first few games of 9th edition that I've played. Now you may have seen him in a battle report that was posted I think on Monday or Tuesday, but if you haven't, go and check that out. Now this guy, I've played 5 games, I've only filmed 1, but he has just absolutely shone because he's got a couple of key special abilities available to him if you kit him out right, and a couple of stratagems that work really well with him, and if done properly this guy just plays so well in light of the new reserve rules, and when it comes to hunting vehicles in particular, which is really important. And he's really good at just grabbing vehicles that are sat on objectives and just turning the tide of the game for you. He's just absolutely fantastic, and he costs barely any points. So what I'm going to do for you today is we're going to have a quick little bit of look at the lore for Furioso Dreadnoughts, just because everyone loves a little bit of lore, just a couple of minutes. Then I'm going to show you his stats. We're going to look at a few dice rolls just to see how this pans out against a couple of common units you might want to hunt down with him. We're going to discuss the tactics for him and a couple of stratagems that you can use to really maximise his potential. So first of all, we'll get stuck in with the lore. Now, it says here that Furioso Dreadnoughts are venerable and ancient. Their occupants are, in many cases, thousands of years old. Veterans who have forgotten more battles than most battle brothers have fought. They slumber deep beneath the Arx Angelicum and are roused to wrath only when the chapter has great need of their might and counsel. All Furioso Dreadnoughts are living relics, reminders of the Blood Angel's glorious past and invaluable repositories of strategic lore. And, you know, they also kick ass on the tabletop. They're just badass, aren't they? Furiosos, they're just an iconic unit for the Blood Angels. We're the only faction that can take a Furioso Dreadnought. And, you know, there's a lot of cool Dreadnoughts out there. You've got your Primaris Dreadnoughts and that kind of thing. You've got your Invictus Warsuits. You've got loads of different replacements that you can use instead of this guy. But, you know, he is standing proud in 9th edition. Well, why is that? Well, for that, let's go and have a look straight at his stats. Now, the Furioso has a couple of interesting abilities that I want to draw your attention to. But first, let's go through his basic stats. So his movement 8 inches, which is great. He's fast on his feet. He's got weapon skill 3+, so he's going to be hitting on 3s in close combat. Now, obviously, I'd rather it be 2s, but he's cheap for what he is, so you can't argue with that. Now, his ballistic skill 3 up, but we're not here to shoot. And there's a good chance you'll be equipping him with flamers or just a melter and a stormbolt, you know, whatever. You're just going to pop a couple of shots with him. That's not what he's here for. I personally like dual heavy flamers because I don't expect much from his shooting anyway. But if there is a little screen in his way of a vehicle and he can torch them with his heavy flamers, then all the better for us. Now, his strength is 6 and his toughness is 7, and he's got 8 wounds. He's got only 4 attacks, and obviously, again, I'd rather it were 5, but it's only 4. But as a Blood Angel, we can really work with that, especially with the Astartes boost when he's going to be charging, and in turn 3, that's going to be +2 attacks. Now, his leadership 8, which isn't really going to come into play, and he's a save 3 up, the same as a standard Astartes. Now, those stats aren't really massively impressive on the face of things when you look at them in comparison to, say, a Redemptor Dreadnought or something like that. Just 13 wounds, you know, strength 7 instead of strength 6, and all this kind of thing. But let's look a little bit closer at the key things that a Furioso can do for us that nothing else can do. Now, I want to draw your attention to the Blood Talons. Now, the Blood Talons are +4 strength, so that's going to be putting him on strength 10, which is, with the Blood Angel's ability of +1 to wound in close combat, you know, really good. That means he's going to be wounding almost anything in the game on 2s. Now, its AP is only -2, and that is the real disadvantage to this weapon. But it's flat damage 3, And the key thing is you can re-roll failed hit and wound rolls for this weapon, which is absolutely fantastic. Because it saves you spending a CP for Wisdom of the Ancients to give yourself reroll ones if you really need those rerolls. You just get them. And the reroll wounds makes him ridiculously reliable. Now, you can, of course, take the Furioso Fists, and these are double strength, so he's strength 12, but you really don't need that. And I can't think of really any situation where you're going to come across a vehicle that is toughness 11, unless you're really unlucky. Now, the AP is -3, and that's the real advantage of this weapon, but they are a lot less reliable because although you're more likely to get wounds through, if you're fighting against something with an invuln save, then the extra AP doesn't matter, and you haven't got the reroll to wounds with the Furioso Fists. So you can reroll failed hit rolls when attacking with a pair, but not reroll the wounds. So for me, because of the prevalence of invulns, if he's fighting against, say, elite infantry or something that isn't a vehicle, I'm going to try and target vehicles with him, and for reasons you'll see in a minute. But, if I don't generally find the AP and the extra strength as valuable as the reroll to hit and reroll to wound. I think it's just absolutely fantastic because you can just operate as a lone wolf. Now, he's power level 9, so he's going to cost you 1 CP to put in reserve, and that is ridiculously good because he has access to another special ability, the Magna Grapple. Now, I think it just costs 5 points to upgrade from smoke launchers. You have to swap it out for smoke launchers. But if a model with a Magna Grapple only targets a single vehicle, so no multi-charges, in the charge phase, add 2 to its charge roll. Just think about that for a second. Add 2 to its charge roll. So if you have an enemy vehicle parked on an objective on the flank, they've moved up from their deployment zone, they've taken one of those midfield flank objectives, and they're sat on it with, let's say a repulsor executioner or something like that, something really heavy, you've got +2 to your charge roll. Now, one of the ridiculously strong things about Primaris vehicles in the new edition, which, unless you've played it, you won't necessarily be aware of, but it's something that I've already come across because I fought against an Ultramarines army earlier this week, is the repulsor field. If any units with this ability are chosen as targets of a charge, subtract 2 from the charge roll. Now, repulsors, impulsors, repulsor executioners, they all have this ability, the hover tanks of the Primaris, and it makes them really resilient in 9th edition because essentially if you come from a flanking reserve and you want to charge them, or if you come from deep strike and you want to charge them, even as a Blood Angel, you're on a 10-inch charge because it would be, over 9 you deploy, so you'd need that 9-inch charge, +1 because you're Blood Angels, but then -2 because of the repulsor field from the hover tank. So this guy can grab repulsors and that kind of thing reliably. And because he's got that +2, it cancels it out, so you're back onto an 8-inch charge. Now, an 8-inch charge isn't guaranteed by any means, but it's a hell of a lot better than anyone else has got in this situation. Now, you can only charge 1 unit, but with the sort of lack of AP, you don't really want to be splitting this guy's attacks, and because he's only got 5 attacks on the charge or 6 from turn 3, he's not got so many attacks that he's really going to want to split, so it's not a disadvantage to just charge a vehicle. Now, if you say, let's say that's the worst case scenario, let's say when you're not charging a repulsor or an impulsor or something like that, that means when this guy walks on against a vehicle, let's say a Chimera or a Predator or just any number of vehicles that are sort of 9 inches, he can walk on 6 inches and be 9 inches away from them from reserve, walking on a flank, and they're just sat on an objective. And if you look at if you've played your way through any of the matches, or if you haven't yet, if you look through the rules, or when you get your rule book, if you look through the rules, all of the objectives are preset, and there's always objectives within grabbing range of a Furioso running on the side of the table. I mean, always. There's never not one there. And because my opponents have all been trying out, their vehicles in 9th edition, there's always plenty of vehicles. There's always one sat with, close enough that I can get within 9 inches of him when I deploy on from the flank on reserve, even from turn 2. And then, because he's got those Magna Grapples, he's on a 6-inch charge. Because it would be 9 inches, but +1 to charges for Blood Angels makes it 8, and then +2 for the Magna Grapple if you only charge that vehicle. Means you can get a 6 into charge. It's just going off. You're gonna run on and just grab that vehicle, and then you're just gonna start tearing it apart with your Blood Talons. It works. It's just reliable. You know, I theory craft, but I don't tell you about that theory craft, generally speaking. You know, a little bit of a break of habit running up to 9th because, you know, it's just exciting to look at the releases as they were coming up. But you guys know I always give you tactics that I have tried out first in multiple battles just to make sure they work, because I don't want you to waste your time, and I don't want you to sort of watch some theory crafted video that, you know, some person's just reading the rules from a book or, you know, online, doesn't even play the unit, and it's just making up. If you spend your money on that, it could be a waste of money. So, you know, this tactic does work. He will be able to grab vehicles, especially anything that isn't a repulse tank, he's having it. And if you spend that CP to re-roll, you know, although you have to re-roll both dice on the charge now in 9th edition, you can't spend a CP to re-roll just one. If you re-roll and charge dice, it has to be both. You know, you still 2 rolls for 6, you're almost definitely going to get that charge off. It's just absolutely fantastic. He's so independent, doesn't need anything to help him get that charge off. He just brings it with him. Now, let's roll some dice. So, first of all, we'll do an example as if it's turn 5, okay? So, we'll do it as if it's turn 5, not turn 5, sorry, we'll do it as if it's turn 2. So he's running on turn 2 in an opportunistic attack, so he won't be powered up to the max because he's not getting that extra attack for Blood Angels, and he's not getting an extra AP. But let's say we're just charging your standard toughness 7, 3-up save vehicle like a Chimera with, you know, 10 wounds, Rhino, something like that. So he's going to roll 5 attacks, and we can see that he's missed with one of those, but because of his Blood Talons he can re-roll it. And yeah, he's got a fail, but you know, he's hitting on 3, so that's fair enough, that's to be expected. And we'll do this 3 times just to be sure. Then he's going to be wounding on 2s, of course, and he wounds with everything. If he'd failed any of those, it wouldn't have mattered because we'd have a reroll from the Blood Talons. Now AP -2 means a 3-up save is going to go to a 5-up. Now, our opponent, that's right on what you would expect. He's failed 3, and that would be 9 damage. So that vehicle would almost be destroyed. And if you just manage to plink off a couple of shots in the shooting phase and just do a couple of damage to a vehicle that you're expecting to charge if you're going in turn 2, just give him that little bit of supporting fire before he goes in, and he will have finished that vehicle off. If it pulls out from combat, it's not going to be able to shoot. Even if it's ultra means it's going to be on its last bracket, it's going to be -1 to hit, it's going to be hitting on 6s. Let's do that again just to make sure we're not getting lucky. So I'm rolling 4 dice, sorry, and another one because he's charged and there's a starties. Reroll that because it wasn't flat on the table. Now we failed with 3 there, so we've been quite unlucky. That's an unlucky roll. And if you were charging on normally, you'd be devastated from that. Because of the Blood Talons, we can re-roll everything. Now, he's only got 3 hits through, so we've been really, really unlucky there, but we've still got our 3 hits. We roll to wound, and you know the dice balance out. We get those 3 wounds through. Our opponent rolls to save, and they're a little unlucky as well, and again, flat 9 damage through. And we'll do it one more time, just to make sure. So this is against a toughness 7 vehicle with a 3-up save. So we roll, and this time, you know, and this is 3 games, let's say, you know, his first charge on 3 separate games. So this time we hit with everything. We don't even need those rerolls. We're going to be wounding on 2s, of course, and we wound with 4. Of course, a 1's going to come up eventually, but rerolls to wound because of the Blood Talons. And oh look, it's a 5. So this time, your opponent's really in trouble. They've got their 5-up save, so it's only AP -2, and they pass 3, so they get really lucky as well. And this time we've only done 6 damage. Now, that's unlucky, but it happens. You know, on average, you're probably going to do about 9 damage. Now, if you were to do that against a repulsor or something like that, let's say you get that charge in, then it's going to be essentially the same. Because even though it's toughness 8, you are, as a Blood Angel, your strength 10, 6 + 4 for the Blood Talons. So and then +1 for Blood Angels, you're going to be wounding on 2. So it'd be the exact same whether it's toughness 7 or toughness 8 on a 3-up save. Now, let's roll some charges out just with these Magna Grapples. So let's say we're not going against a repulsor with repulsor field. So we've come on from the flank, did we make the charge? So the first time, yes, we do. Let's try it again. Now this time we've got unlucky. Because of the Magna Grapples, well, we're still way off, so we'll spend a CP. And this time, 7, wouldn't be enough, but with the Magna Grapples, that takes us over the 8 that we need, and we make it in. So we've just spent a CP that time to make it work, but still worth it. Let's try another charge. Now, 6, that's enough, because +2 because of the Magna Grapples, +1 because of Blood Angel, we've made it in. So initially your heart skips a beat, you see a 6-inch charge when you're running in from reserve, but that actually goes off unbelievably, that 1 and that 5. Let's go again. Just keep rolling these dice. That's another successful charge against a vehicle without a repulsor field. That's another successful charge without a vehicle with a repulsor field. And we can just do this all day. That's another successful one. Oh, looks bad because we've got a 2, but nope, 6 +2 +1. That's in, that's successful. And you know, we can just do this all day. Can you see how reliably this guy is grabbing vehicles? Your standard vehicle, you know, repulsors, fields are bad, and they make it a lot tougher. We'd have to spend a CP in this case to try and get that 8. But, you know, we spend that CP, we get it. So, essentially, if you're rolling against a repulsor, you might have to use a CP to re-roll it. But most of the time, you're just getting in. You know, that wouldn't be enough, but it would be for a normal vehicle, just not a repulsor. Re-roll it. Oh, look, 3 and a 6, we're in. You know, it's just ridiculously reliable. This guy cannot... You know, he really struggles to fail that charge. You've got to be so unlucky to fail that charge against almost any vehicle, even with a -2, because of that Magna Grapple and because of the Blood Angel's inherent +1. Now, let's say we're patient, and let's say we bring him in turn 3. So this time, we're going to get an extra attack because we're Blood Angels. So we get +1 attack if we go into the Assault Doctrine, which obviously we're going to do. Why would you not? So this time, we're also AP -3. So let's say we've made it into a Repulsor Executioner. As you can see, it's really reliable, so let's just say we've made it in. So we roll our 6 attacks, and we've got these... Sorry, just went off camera. So we failed with one of them, but because the Blood Talons, we re-roll. We get a 6, so that's a hit. And again, this is with no buffs. You know, if you put a Chaplain on him, you could make that 6 an extra attack. You can make it AP -4. There's loads of stuff you can do. Now, he's rolled a terrible roll for his wounds. And he's got 3 1s there, 4 1s, okay? But, Blood Talons, we re-roll all hits and wounds. It's not a problem. So we re-roll everything, and oh look, we've wounded 6 times. Now, because it's AP -3, our Repulsor is only going to have a 6-up save. So let's see how many 6s the Repulsor can get. Now, predictably, it only gets 1, so that is 5 times 3 flat damage. That's 15 damage. Now, Repulsor Executioner has 16 wounds, so it's on 1 wound. And again, if you've put that supporting fire in before he's charged in, you know your Fury's going for him, and you think, I'll give him some supporting fire on the way in, and you plink off 3 or 4 wounds before you go in just to give him a chance, then that's the Repulsor blown up in a 1-2 combo. A little bit supporting fire, plus a Furioso, turn 3. And, you know, if you know you're going to be bringing him in turn 3, then just start plinking at him a bit turn 2 and turn 3, and, you know, hopefully you've got that Repulsor down. And against any other tank, that tank's gone, you know, apart from a Land Raider. Let's do it again. So, this time, he's failed with 2, but oh look, Blood Talons, re-roll them. Now, he's failed there, he's been unlucky, so let's see how reliable our wounds are. Now, I've wounded with everything there. Let's see their 6-up save. Now, they don't pass any of them, as it's highly unlikely they would with only 4 dice on a 6-up. So again, it's still 12 damage. That's bracketed it. Let's say it's worst case scenario, you're attacking a Repulsor Executioner of the Ultramarines, and you've done 12 damage to him. Well, that's taken him down to his final bracket, because the final bracket's 1 to 4. That means its movement's only 3 inches, and its ballistic skills are 5 up. When it pulls out, -1 to hit, it's hitting you on 6s. So I think I've clearly demonstrated that. We'll do it one more time. And, you know, remember, this is the same wounding against a Knight or anything else. And Knights don't get invuns in close combat unless, you know, they've got a specific relic or warlord trait. So we failed with 2 there. We re-roll them because of Blood Talons. Okay, so we've only got 5 through, but it's fine. 5 out of 6. Rolling to wound, we need those 2s. Again, we've got really unlucky here. Now, I am an unlucky dice roller sometimes. I can have bursts of bad luck, as we all can. But this re-roll hits and re-roll wounds is just so reliable. So that's 4 wounds through there. And then, you know, AP -3, 6-up save. Now they've made one there. So that's kind of worst case scenario. You've seen how unlucky I've been. then how lucky my saves were, sort of, as my imaginary opponent. And he still did 9 wounds, and that's to anything that's, toughness up to toughness 9, because he's going to be wounding them on 2s. And, he's going to do well against even toughness 10 stuff, but, you're not going to be facing that. Toughness 8, toughness 7, that's what he's going to be facing. He's going to be hitting it, re-rolling, wounding it on 2s. I've really demonstrated that well, and I feel clearly, so I just want to draw your attention to one more thing, because as we all know, these Dreadnoughts, they do have a serious disadvantage, and that is they can be plinked down quite rapidly in in a bit of shooting and in return fire. So if you were to fail that charge, and a bit of plasma, just a few special weapons dotted around people's squads, and they can quickly wreck your day. But if I just draw your attention to, in the Blood of Baal, we received a stratagem which all Astartes have now: Duty Eternal. Use this stratagem when a Blood Angel's Dreadnought model from your army is chosen as the target for an attack. Until the end of the phase, when resolving an attack made against that model, halve the damage inflicted, rounded up. So this guy comes in, they pull out and start shooting at him and that kind of thing. Well, he's going to take half damage, so they have to really dacre him. Now that puts them in a difficult position, and I'm sure loads of you have used this stratagem for more powerful Dreadnoughts, because I'm sure not many of us have been using our Furiosos throughout 8th. But it really does reduce the amount of damage. It forces your opponent to either spray lots of dacre at him, which is going to take a lot to kill him, and that dacre could be well used against your Death Company and your Sanguinary Guard, and will be needed against those guys. Or they shoot special weapons at him, which again could well be used against your Sanguinary Guard or any Primaris you've got on the field. High AP, high damage weaponry. This guy falls quickly to a quick focus of that. But with Duty Eternal for 1 CP, you can make sure that he takes a lot of firepower before he dies. Now the opponent will be crazy to not finish him off, especially if you've got a couple of heavy flamers on there. Or he's just going to run in and start wrecking other stuff as well, tearing stuff apart. Against elite units, he can tear them apart. Against aggressors, turn 3, AP minus 3, flat 3 damage. You're just going to be tearing chunks off them. So they have to kill him, but in killing him and with spending this stratagem, Duty Eternal, that's going to absorb so much of their firepower that when it comes to hitting your Sang Guard and hitting your Death Company, or getting a Smash Captain out of the way with Dacre, mass Dacre fire or that kind of thing to get around his Storm Shield, they're not going to have that much firepower to go around. So this guy's just going to eat up more firepower than the enemy would like to dedicate to him. And they're stuck between a rock and a hard place, because they've seen him attack, they've seen him do that damage. If you bring him in turn 2, he's a must-kill target before turn 3. If you bring him in turn 3, as you've seen, that's the most effective way to do it, if you can be patient and if you can hold him off. And he's not that many points, so you'll still have plenty to work with. Then they're really going to want him dead by turn 4. And because, if it's turn 3, you've had your Sangard running around by then, you've had your Death Company running around by then. They've really not got that much firepower left. And it takes basically, their remaining forces in turn 3, 4, depending on whether you go first or not, it takes the majority of their special weapons to bring this guy down once you've spent Duty Eternal. And it really sucks for them. And then your remaining elite units can carry on doing what they do. So he's like the perfect distraction count effects, but he actually does do damage. It's kind of like, he's easy to deal with, but he's going to grab you. He's going to get you. Just lies in wait at the edge of the board, and as soon as a vehicle strays onto one of those flank objectives, strays too close to the edge of the board, this guy charges in on a 6-inch charge, just tears them apart. It's just so good. And once he's on the board, and if they don't deal with him, if they decide, right, I'm going to take out all those Sangard and Death Company, and they successfully do that, but then leave this guy on the board, he can run in against other units. If they've spent all their CP by then, or they've got not much CP, or they need to spend that CP on Overwatch for someone else, if this guy's running in against high value targets, he's going to be drawing Overwatch fire, so your other units don't get Overwatched, because they're not going to want this guy to grab their aggressors and just tear a squad of aggressors limb from limb. Because he will do that, it's quite easily if he gets in. So they're going to want to try and block him, and if those aggressors don't kill this guy, he's going to tear them down anyway, and the rest of your charges are going to go off with that Overwatch. He's just great. He is such a good combined arms unit. You'll just get, I think with dual heavy flamer, I think he comes, I'm not going to give you the precise points, but 122 points I think it is, I won't give you the individual points is what I mean, but I think he's 122 points in 9th edition, new points, with dual blood talons, magna grapple, and double heavy flamer. And that is a fun unit as well. He's a classic Blood Angels unit. It's just I can't say enough good things about this guy. Now, my opponent's probably going to get wise to him, but at the end of the day, you can't really avoid those edge objectives. And if they want to keep their vehicles just all crammed together in the middle, then that's just corralling them for my other elite units, my Smash Captains, Mephiston, and Sangard, Termes with Power Fist, anything like that coming in the centre. So if this guy only acts to corral my opponents closer together because they're afraid of getting too close to the edge of the board, then great, he's done a great job anyway, and then maybe I can just run him in the backfield and start racking up behind enemy lines on my secondaries. If there's no viable targets but you just need someone to run on and sit in the back corner of a table quarter and get engaged on all fronts and line breaker, and there's just nothing that can really kill him off that easily, and he's not really doing anything, you just spend Duty Eternal on him to stop him getting killed off. This guy can be picking you up loads of secondaries as well, and he's not that many points that you're going to miss him if you're not getting him involved, but more than likely you are going to get him involved and you're just going to do some crazy stuff. The reason why I've just met, of all the units I could make a video on first for 9th edition, I've made it about the Furioso and sort of take that with good reason. He is just great. He is so much fun. So anyway, I think I've said enough. I hope you've got the idea there. I hope you dust off your Furioso, start kitting him out with those blood talons and magna grapple and running him on for those cheesy 6-inch charges from reserve. So this has been. I hope you found this video entertaining. I hope you found it interesting and informative. This has been the Schola Progenium. Thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.